She demanded an open relationship because I wasn't exciting enough. I agreed. When she saw my dating profile had 200 matches and hers had 3, she tried to close it. Too late. The conversation that ended my 5-year relationship started while I was eating reheated pasta. Not exactly the setting you'd expect. It was a Friday night. Brenna was sitting across from me at our kitchen table, barely touching her food and checking her phone every couple of minutes. She'd been weird since she got home. Not upset exactly. More like she'd rehearsed something and was waiting for the right moment to say it. Eventually, she put her phone face down. Can we talk about us? I stopped eating. Sure. For context, Brenna and I had been together 5 years, living together for 3. I'm 32, and at that point I genuinely thought we'd probably get married eventually. I wasn't in a rush. Apparently, that was part of the problem. I work as a commercial property assessor. It's not something that makes people lean forward at parties and ask me to tell them more, but I like it. I'm good at it, the money is solid, and I've spent most of my 20s getting myself into a position where I don't panic every time an unexpected bill shows up. Brenna worked in event coordination. Her income was less consistent than mine, so I'd gradually taken on more of our expenses. There was never some official conversation where I agreed to support her. It just happened. I paid about 70% of the rent. I usually handled utilities. When her car needed repairs, I covered part of it. When she switched jobs and went several weeks without a paycheck, I covered basically everything. I never held that over her head. I figured that's what you did when you were building a life with someone. But over the previous year, Brenna had started making little comments about how predictable we'd become. We didn't go out enough. We didn't travel spontaneously. We planned everything. She once complained because I booked a hotel 3 weeks before a weekend trip instead of just seeing where the night took us. I remember asking her how sleeping in the car because every hotel was full would improve the experience. She didn't find that funny. Then there was Rhett. Rhett Calder worked with Brenna. I'd never met him, but somehow I knew half his biography. Rhett had gone backpacking overseas. Rhett knew which bars stayed open late. Rhett once booked a flight somewhere, I honestly don't remember where, the same morning he left. Apparently this was fascinating. At first I didn't care. People talk about coworkers. Then I noticed she mostly mentioned Rhett when comparing something he'd done to something I wouldn't do. One night she told me, Rhett says people waste their lives waiting until they're financially ready to actually live. I remember looking around our apartment. Does Rhett pay our rent? She rolled her eyes. Looking back, that probably should have told me more than it did. Anyway, Friday night, Brenna took a breath. I feel like we're stuck. Stuck how? I don't know. Everything is just the same. She started listing things. Work, dinner, television, weekends planned in advance. Then she finally said it. I love you, Callum, but you're just not exciting enough anymore. I stared at her for a few seconds. Not because it destroyed me or anything dramatic like that. I genuinely didn't know what response she expected. Okay. Her eyebrows went up. That's it? What exactly do you want me to say? She started explaining that she was still young and didn't want to wake up 10 years later wondering if she'd missed experiences. Then came phrases like exploring ourselves and taking pressure off the relationship. Eventually I interrupted. Are you asking for an open relationship? She went quiet, then nodded. There it was. She immediately started explaining that it wasn't about replacing me. Apparently we were supposed to meet other people, have new experiences, then bring that energy back into our relationship. I listened for maybe 2 minutes. Then I asked the obvious question. Is there already someone? No. Way too fast. I looked at her. She looked away. Brenna, there isn't. Rhett? Her face changed. Barely, but enough. She started getting defensive. He has nothing to do with this. Have you slept with him? No. Kissed him? No. Do you want to? She hesitated. Maybe 2 seconds. That was enough too. I leaned back in my chair. Funny thing is, I'd expected myself to be angry if something like this ever happened. Instead, I felt strangely calm, almost relieved. At least now I understood what the last few months had been about. Brenna reached across the table. I don't want to lose you. That sentence actually made me laugh a little. Not loudly, just enough that she pulled her hand back. So you want other men, but you don't want to lose me? That's not what I'm saying. It sounds pretty close. She got irritated and told me I was deliberately making it sound ugly. Maybe I was. Or maybe removing all the nice language made the idea sound exactly like what it was. I thought about it for another few seconds. Then I said, okay. She blinked. Okay, what? We can open it. The expression on her face was not relief. It was surprise. She'd prepared herself for resistance. Maybe crying. Maybe bargaining. Maybe me promising to become more exciting. Anything except agreement. But we're writing rules, I said. She frowned. What rules? I grabbed my laptop from the counter. Separate finances. Neither of us brought dates into the apartment. No interfering with each other's dates. No demanding access to messages. Honesty about whether we were actively seeing someone. Then I added one final condition. Either person could end the relationship permanently at any time. Brenna read that twice. You mean end the open thing? No, the relationship. She looked at me. Why would we need that? Because if we're doing this, neither of us gets to assume the other person will still be here afterward. She thought about it, then shrugged. Fine. That shrug stayed with me. I printed the rules using the little printer in our spare room. We both signed them. Brenna actually smiled afterward. I think she believed she'd won. The next morning, I woke up before her. She was still asleep when I made coffee and opened my laptop at the kitchen table. But I didn't open a dating app. Not yet. I opened our monthly expenses. And for the first time in 3 years, I started separating exactly what belonged to me from what belonged to Brenna. The numbers were worse than I expected. Not because we were struggling. We weren't. It was because I'd apparently become responsible for half of Brenna's life without noticing when it happened. I had a spreadsheet where I tracked our household expenses. Rent, electricity, internet, groceries, insurance, subscriptions, all the boring adult stuff nobody posts pictures of. Our rent was $2,350. I paid $1,650. That arrangement had started when Brenna was between jobs about 18 months earlier. Once she started working again, we just never changed it back. Then there was the internet. Mine. Most of the streaming services. Mine. Our grocery delivery membership. Mine. The credit card Brenna carried for household emergencies was technically mine too. She was an authorized user. I opened the statements. Coffee, gas, takeout, a clothing store. Apparently emergencies had become pretty flexible. Nothing outrageous individually. That was the weird part. It was just years of small things gradually becoming normal. I removed her as an authorized user. Then I went through every automatic payment. I wasn't trying to leave her without electricity or anything stupid like that. We still lived together. I was simply making sure that anything belonging specifically to Brenna became Brenna's responsibility. Car payment? Her name. Car insurance? Her policy. Gym membership? Definitely hers. I made another column labeled Brenna and started moving things over. About 40 minutes later, I heard footsteps behind me. What are you doing? I turned around. She was standing there wearing one of my old t-shirts, hair everywhere, looking half asleep. Finances. At 7:30? Couldn't sleep. She walked over and looked at the spreadsheet. Then she noticed the columns. What does this mean? We agreed on separate finances. I meant dating. I looked at her. How do you separate finances for dating? She stared at me for a second. You know what I mean? Actually, I didn't. The rule literally said separate finances. I'd suggested it because I wasn't interested in indirectly paying for Brenna to go out with other men. Apparently that possibility hadn't crossed her mind. So you're not paying the car insurance anymore? Your car insurance? Yeah. No. She folded her arms. Seriously? Brenna, you asked for independence. I didn't ask you to nickel and dime me. That irritated me a little. Not enough to argue, but enough that I closed the laptop. I'm not charging you retroactively for anything. I'm paying my expenses and my share of household expenses. You pay yours. She stood there for a few seconds. Then she shrugged. Again. Whatever. She walked away. That was becoming her favorite response whenever she assumed something wouldn't actually matter. The rest of Saturday was strangely normal. We went grocery shopping separately, which felt ridiculous considering we were still living together. Sunday was quiet too. Then Tuesday evening, Brenna came home unusually cheerful. She showered immediately. Then she spent almost an hour getting ready. I was sitting on the couch reading when she walked into the living room wearing a black dress I hadn't seen in months. I'm going out. Okay. She stood there. I looked back at my book. With someone. I looked up again. Okay. That clearly wasn't enough. She adjusted one of her earrings. It's red. There it was. I can't pretend that didn't bother me. It did. 5 years doesn't disappear because somebody signs a piece of paper, but I'd already decided I wasn't going to perform jealousy for her, so I nodded. Have fun. Her expression changed slightly. You're really okay with this? You wanted this. I know. So what's the problem? No problem. She grabbed her purse, then stood there another few seconds like she was waiting for something. I honestly think she wanted me to stop her. Eventually she left. I heard the door close and sat there staring at the same page of my book for probably 5 minutes. Then I laughed at myself because I hadn't absorbed a single word. Fine. I put the book down. If we were actually doing this, then I wasn't going to sit home waiting for Brenna to finish exploring. I downloaded 2 dating apps. Making a profile at 32 after 5 years in a relationship was humbling. Apparently I had approximately 6 photographs of myself that weren't either work-related or taken at somebody else's wedding. I found one decent picture from a hiking trip, another from my cousin's birthday, and one of me holding my sister's dog. For the bio, I kept it simple. 32. Commercial property assessor. I cook. I hike occasionally, looking to meet people and see where things go. I almost deleted the whole thing twice. Brenna had spent the better part of a year telling me I was predictable. Part of me had started believing that translated to undesirable. I hit publish anyway. Then I went to bed. Brenna came home after midnight. I heard her moving around the kitchen but didn't get up. The next morning, she volunteered information without me asking. Red had taken her to some new restaurant. Apparently he knew the manager. Then they'd gone somewhere for drinks. He just knows everybody, she said. Sounds useful. She gave me a weird look. That was basically the entire conversation. Over the next few days, she went out with him again. Meanwhile, My phone started buzzing. At first I assumed dating apps deliberately gave new accounts extra attention. 10 matches, then 30, then 70 something. Women were actually starting conversations too. One asked about the hiking picture. Another wanted to know if the dog was mine. One made fun of my job description because apparently commercial property assessor sounded like something I'd invented to avoid saying accountant. By the end of the first week, I was over 100 matches. I didn't mention it. Brenna noticed anyway. Friday night, I was sitting at the kitchen counter answering a message when she walked behind me. Jesus, who keeps texting you? People. She leaned closer before I locked my phone. Wait, is that your dating profile? Yeah. How many matches do you have? I hesitated, then opened it. Her eyebrows went up. By the end of the second week, the number had crossed 200. Brenna stared at the screen, then laughed. Half of those are probably bots. Probably. That answer seemed to annoy her. She pulled out her own phone. I've gotten like 3 guys I'd actually consider meeting. I didn't say anything. What? Nothing. She narrowed her eyes at me. The funny part was, I genuinely wasn't trying to compete with her, but judging by her expression, she had suddenly realized we were in a competition anyway. Later that night, while Brenna was watching television, my phone buzzed again. A woman I'd been talking to for several days had sent me a message. Dinner Thursday? I read it twice, then typed back, sure. Across the room, Brenna glanced over. Who was that? I put my phone face down. My first date. And for the first time since she'd asked to open our relationship, Brenna stopped smiling. Brenna stared at me for a second. Then she laughed. Not a real laugh. More like the kind people do when they're trying to show you something doesn't bother them. Already? What do you mean? Already? You've had that profile for what? 2 weeks? Something like that. She turned back toward the television. Well, have fun. I plan to. That earned me another look. Thursday came around, and I almost canceled. Not because of Brenna. Dating again just felt strange. The woman was named Tessa, and we'd agreed to meet at a small Italian place about 20 minutes away. I got there first because apparently 5 years in a relationship hadn't cured me of arriving 10 minutes early for everything. Tessa was nice. That's probably the fairest description. She worked as a physical therapist, had recently gotten out of a long relationship herself, and spent 20 minutes telling me about a disastrous vacation she'd taken with her sister. I genuinely enjoyed talking to her. There just wasn't much chemistry, and honestly, that was reassuring. I'd gone into the evening half expecting dating to feel like some huge event. Instead, it was dinner with another person. We split the check, talked outside for another 10 minutes, then hugged goodbye. No kiss, no dramatic moment. She texted later saying she'd had a nice time but wasn't sure there was a romantic connection. I agreed. Perfectly normal adult interaction. I got home a little before midnight. The television was on. Brenna was sitting on the couch. You're awake? Couldn't sleep. She muted the television. How was it? Good. Just good? Yeah. She waited. I took my shoes off. What? Was she attractive? I laughed. Seriously? I'm just asking. Yes. Did you kiss her? No. Are you seeing her again? Probably not. Something about that answer relaxed her. It was subtle, but I noticed. She leaned back against the couch. See? Dating apps aren't always what they look like. I looked at her. What does that mean? Nothing. Apparently one mediocre date had restored the natural order of the universe. I went to bed. A few days later, Rhett canceled on her. I only knew because Brenna had spent nearly an hour getting ready before suddenly walking into the kitchen in sweatpants. Thought you were going out. He had something come up. Oh. She opened the refrigerator harder than necessary. He has a life. Callum. I didn't say anything. You had that look. I hadn't, but correcting her seemed pointless. Meanwhile, I kept talking to people. One woman in particular, LOD, was easy to talk to. She taught culinary classes at a community center and had a habit of sending me pictures of whatever she'd made that day and asking me to rate it. Eventually she suggested drinks. That date went much better. We met around 7 and stayed until almost 11. Nothing huge happened. We kissed outside afterward, exchanged a couple of texts when I got home, and agreed we'd probably meet again. Brenna was awake again. This time she wasn't pretending to watch television. She was sitting at the kitchen counter scrolling through her phone. How was this one? Pretty good. Pretty good? Yeah. Are you seeing her again? Probably. Her thumb stopped moving. Did you kiss her? I opened the refrigerator. Brenna, what? You don't give me play-by-play reports about Rhett. I would if you asked. I don't want them. She stared at me. So you did. I grabbed some water. I don't understand why this suddenly matters. It doesn't. Okay. I started walking toward the bedroom. Behind me she said, I just think you're taking this really seriously. I stopped. That one confused me. I turned around. You asked for an open relationship. I know what I asked for. Apparently I don't. She sighed. There's a difference between exploring and actively dating people every week. You've seen Rhett 3 times. That's different. There it was again. How? She didn't answer immediately. Then she said, because I'm not trying to replace you. Neither am I. You don't know these women. That is generally how dating works. She rolled her eyes. I should have left it there. Instead, I asked, what exactly did you think would happen? I don't know. Yes, You did. She looked at me. I could see her getting frustrated. Finally she said it. That was before I knew you'd actually enjoy it. The kitchen went quiet. I didn't respond immediately because I wanted to make sure I'd heard her correctly. So you wanted this as long as I wasn't enjoying it? That isn't what I said. It's pretty close. She started explaining that she'd expected us to explore casually, not build separate lives, but I wasn't really listening anymore. Something had clicked. This had never been about both of us having freedom. She'd wanted freedom while assuming I'd stay exactly where she'd left me. The next morning, I got an email while I was at work. I'd applied months earlier for a senior regional position with a property group expanding into another state. Honestly, I'd almost forgotten about it. They wanted a final interview. I read the email twice before replying. I didn't tell Brenna. That evening, something else happened. I was sitting in my car outside our apartment when my dating app notification went off. Someone had liked my profile. The face looked familiar, very familiar. I opened it. Mari's Bell. I knew Mari's through work. More importantly, Brenna knew who she was too. Years earlier, after we'd seen Mari's at an industry event, Brenna had made one very specific comment about her. She's exactly your type. At the time, I'd laughed it off. Now Mari's had sent me a message. Coffee sometime? I stared at it for a few seconds. Then I typed back. Absolutely. Mari's suggested Saturday morning. Coffee made the whole thing feel less loaded, which I appreciated. We met at a place about 15 minutes from my apartment. I arrived first, obviously. At that point I'm pretty sure being early was just a medical condition. Mari's walked in maybe 5 minutes later. Callum? As far as I know. She laughed. That helped. I'd seen her at industry events before, but we'd probably exchanged 20 words total over the years. She worked as a restaurant leasing consultant, so our jobs occasionally overlapped. The reason Brenna remembered her had nothing to do with that. About 2 years earlier, Brenna and I had attended a hospitality fundraiser. Mari's had been there representing one of her clients. Afterward, Brenna asked me 3 separate times whether I thought Mari's was attractive. I eventually said yes because denying it would have been ridiculous. That was when Brenna said, "She's exactly your type." I'd asked what my type was. Women who look like they don't need anybody. I remember laughing because I thought she was joking. Sitting across from Mari's now, I realized she probably hadn't been. Anyway, the coffee went well. Really well, actually. We talked for almost 2 hours. Mostly normal stuff. Work, families, places we'd traveled. She made fun of me when she learned I kept spreadsheets for personal expenses. You're one of those people. One of what people? You probably have a vacation itinerary. I absolutely have a vacation itinerary. She shook her head. Terrifying. I smiled. Apparently being predictable wasn't universally considered a character defect. There was one awkward moment when Mari's asked how long I'd been single. I decided not to lie. Technically, I'm not. She stopped stirring her coffee. I explained the situation. Not every detail, obviously. I wasn't about to unload 5 years of relationship problems on somebody during coffee. I told her Brenna and I had mutually agreed to open the relationship and that we had clear rules. Mari's listened. Then she asked, "And you're actually okay with that?" I agreed to it. That wasn't my question. Fair enough. I don't know yet. She nodded. I expected that to kill the date. Instead she said, "Okay, as long as everyone actually knows what's happening." They do. Then I'm not your therapist. That made me laugh. We met again 4 days later. Dinner this time. Then the following weekend. Nothing moved ridiculously fast. That's probably why I enjoyed it. Mari's had her own schedule, her own friends, her own money. If she couldn't meet Tuesday, she said she couldn't meet Tuesday. There wasn't a 20-minute negotiation about rearranging everything. Meanwhile, Rhett had apparently become extremely busy. I knew because Brenna started complaining about him without realizing she was complaining about him. He's terrible at texting. I was making eggs. Okay. He read my message yesterday. Sounds criminal. She ignored that. He said we might go out tonight, but now he hasn't answered. I slid the eggs onto my plate. Maybe he's busy. She gave me a look. What? You sound happy about it. I sound hungry. She walked away. Rhett eventually canceled. Again. Then Saturday afternoon, Brenna was sitting beside me on the couch when my phone lit up. Mari's, still good for 7? I picked up the phone. Brenna had already seen it. Her whole posture changed. Mari's? I looked at her. Yeah. Mari's Bell? How many Marises do you think I know? She stared at me. You're dating her? We've gone out a few times. A few times? There was something almost funny about the outrage. You knew I was dating. Not her. I put my phone down. What's wrong with her? You know exactly what's wrong. I honestly didn't. Then I remembered the fundraiser. Oh, yeah. Oh. She stood up. So you specifically picked the one woman you knew would bother me? She matched with me, and you just happened to say yes? Yes. Brenna laughed and shook her head. That's unbelievably petty. Where in the rules does it say Mari's is off limits? This isn't about rules. That seems convenient. She folded her arms. I never went after somebody you were insecure about. I stared at her. You opened our relationship because you wanted Rhett. That is not why I did it. Okay. Stop saying okay like that. Like what? Like you think you know everything. I checked the time. 6:18. I needed to shower. Brenna followed me toward the bedroom. Are you seriously still going? Yes. After this conversation? What exactly changed? She didn't answer. I grabbed a clean shirt from the closet. Behind me she said, I think we need to talk about boundaries again. I turned around. No, you want to change the boundaries because you're uncomfortable now. Her mouth tightened. I left before the argument could restart. Dinner with Maurice was great. 2 days later, I had my final interview for the regional position. It lasted almost 90 minutes. I thought it went well, but interviews are weird. Sometimes you leave convinced you nailed it and never hear from them again. So I went back to work and tried not to think about it. Thursday morning, an email appeared. Offer of employment. I opened it immediately. The salary was about 30% higher than what I was making. Senior regional responsibility. Relocation assistance. Start date shortly after our current lease expired. I sat at my desk reading the offer 3 times. Then I accepted. That afternoon, I emailed our landlord. I will not be renewing the lease. I didn't tell Brenna. Not yet. When I got home that evening, she was already sitting at the kitchen table. No television. No phone. Nothing. Can we talk? I put my keys down. Sure. She took a breath. I've been thinking about everything. I pulled out the chair across from her. Then she said it like she'd already made the decision for both of us. We're closing the relationship. Tonight. I looked at her for a few seconds. Closing it? Yes. Brenna sounded almost relieved. I'm done with this. You're done with this. We tried it, and obviously it isn't helping us. That last part caught my attention. I'm done with it? You know what I mean? No. Actually, she sighed. I want us back. Callum. I sat down across from her. Why now? What? Why do you want to close it now? Because I realized this isn't what I want. When? She looked confused. When what? When did you realize that? Apparently she hadn't expected follow-up questions. She started talking about how strange everything felt between us. How we barely spent time together anymore. How watching me go out had made her realize she didn't want to lose what we'd built. It sounded reasonable. Almost. There was just one name missing. How's Rhett? Her expression immediately tightened. This isn't about Rhett. Then answering should be easy. She looked away. I waited. Finally she said, we're not really talking anymore. There it was. What happened? Nothing happened. Brenna. She rubbed her forehead. He's just been distant. How distant? Why does it matter? Because you're sitting here asking me to close our relationship. She didn't answer. Eventually the rest came out. Rhett had canceled on her twice. Then he'd stopped initiating conversations. Brenna had asked whether something was wrong, and apparently he'd given her some vague answer about being busy and not wanting anything serious. I almost felt bad for her. Almost. So Rhett doesn't want a relationship. I didn't say that. You basically did. She got irritated. This is exactly why I didn't want to tell you. I haven't done anything. You're enjoying this. That actually annoyed me. No. I'm trying to understand why our relationship suddenly became valuable again the second Rhett lost interest. Her face changed. That isn't fair, isn't it? I told you I realized I love you. You loved me 6 weeks ago. I still did. And I wasn't exciting enough. She pushed her chair back slightly. Are you seriously going to hold one sentence over my head forever? No. I stood up. That's actually what I wanted to talk to you about. She looked relieved again. I walked into the spare room and opened the desk drawer. The signed agreement was exactly where I'd left it. When I returned, I put it on the table. Brenna stared at it. What are you doing? I turned the page around and pointed to the final rule. Either person may permanently end the relationship at any time. She read it, then looked at me. We're not ending the relationship. I am. For several seconds, she didn't say anything. Then she laughed. You're serious? Yeah. Because I wanted to try something? No. Because trying it showed me something. Her eyes narrowed. Maurice. This isn't about Maurice. Don't lie to me. I'm not. You meet her and suddenly you're ending 5 years? I almost pointed out the irony, but there wasn't much point. I made this decision before Maurice became anything serious. Then when? I pulled out my phone. I had already rehearsed this part in my head, mostly because I knew Brenna wouldn't believe me. Our lease expires in 6 weeks. I know. I emailed the landlord today. I'm not renewing. Her face went blank. What? I'm moving. Where? I haven't told you everything yet. That was true, but I wasn't discussing the job offer while she was this worked up. She stood. You can't just decide that. I literally can. We live here together. Until the lease ends. What am I supposed to do? Find another apartment. She stared at me like I'd suggested she live under a bridge. 6 weeks? That's plenty of notice. Then she started pacing. This is insane. You're blowing up our entire life because I made one mistake. You didn't make a mistake. Yes, I did. No, you made a decision. She stopped. And so did I. That was when the conversation got ugly. Apparently separating our finances had been calculated. Dating other women had been spiteful. Seeing Maurice was deliberately cruel. Not renewing the lease was manipulation. Everything I'd done under the exact agreement Brenna requested was somehow evidence that I'd secretly wanted to punish her. Eventually she grabbed her phone. I'm calling my mom. I actually laughed. Of course you are. Don't. I'm not stopping you. Colleen called me 20 minutes later. I let it ring once before answering. Callum. What the hell is going on? Good start. Brenna told me you're leaving her over this open relationship nonsense. Pretty much. She made a mistake. That's what she keeps saying. You've been together 5 years. Adults don't throw relationships away because somebody gets confused. I leaned against the kitchen counter. Did Brenna mention whose idea the open relationship was? That doesn't matter. Interesting. Colleen paused. Then came the part I expected. Brenna needed time. I should keep helping with the apartment. We should attend counseling. I shouldn't make major financial decisions while angry. I wasn't angry. That seemed to frustrate everyone. Over the next few days, Brenna shifted between apologizing and accusing me of destroying her life. Then, bizarrely, Rhett resurfaced. Not to apologize. According to Brenna, he told her I'd obviously been planning to leave all along. She actually repeated that to me like it proved something. Rhett thinks you set this whole thing up. I stared at her. The guy who stopped answering you? Her face went red. That conversation ended quickly. The following Sunday morning, I walked into the kitchen and found Brenna sitting at the table with her laptop open. She had a calculator beside her and 3 apartment listings on the screen. For once, she wasn't angry. She looked worried. Callum, yeah? She turned the laptop toward me. I need to ask you something. I looked at the numbers. Rent, car payment, insurance, utilities, everything I'd quietly been helping carry for years. Then Brenna asked the question she'd apparently never needed to ask before. How am I supposed to afford all of this by myself? I looked at the spreadsheet, then at Brenna. I don't know. She blinked. What do you mean you don't know? I mean I don't know what you can afford. You know how much I make? Roughly. She turned the laptop back toward herself. The apartment she'd been looking at was $1,780 a month. Not outrageous for the area. But once she added her car payment, insurance, utilities, groceries and everything else, the numbers didn't work. Not comfortably. Anyway, she pointed at the screen. If I take this place, I'll barely have anything left. Then don't take that place. The cheaper ones are terrible. I looked at one of the other listings. It seemed fine. Smaller than ours. Sure. Older kitchen. No covered parking. Apparently that qualified as terrible now. What do you want me to say? She hesitated. Could you keep helping with the car for a while? There it was. For how long? Just until I get settled. A month? I don't know. Maybe 3 or 4. I shook my head. Brenna, no. Her expression hardened immediately. You've been paying toward it anyway. Because I was using it too. You barely used it. Then this should be even simpler. She closed the laptop harder than necessary. You're really going to leave me struggling? No. I'm going to stop paying your expenses. Same thing. That sentence told me more than she probably intended. I sat across from her. Do you hear yourself? What? You think me not paying your bills means I'm making you struggle? After 5 years together? Yeah. I think helping me transition would be the decent thing. I almost laughed. Transition from what? She stared at me. Our relationship. You were comfortable transitioning into dating Rhett. Can you stop bringing him up? Sure. I stood. That seemed to annoy her even more. She wanted an argument. Something she could push against. I didn't have one left to give her. The next few days were mostly variations of the same conversation. Could I keep paying the internet? No. Could she stay on my credit card for emergencies? Definitely no. Could I cover part of her next security deposit since we'd originally planned to renew together? Also no. I wasn't taking anything from her. That was the part she couldn't seem to understand. I was simply removing myself. Apparently those looked identical from her side. Colleen called again Wednesday. I almost didn't answer. Callum, Brenna says you're refusing to help her move. I'm helping her carry furniture if she needs it. You know that's not what I mean. Of course it wasn't. She can't afford these deposits on short notice. She has 6 weeks. That's short notice when somebody suddenly changes your entire financial situation. I rubbed my forehead. Colleen, your daughter asked to fundamentally change our relationship because I wasn't exciting enough. She apologized, and now I'm leaving. You're punishing her. No. Punishment would be me trying to hurt her. I'm just not funding her anymore. She went quiet. Then she said, you sound very cold. Maybe I did, but there wasn't really a warmer way to say I'm no longer paying for another adult's lifestyle. A couple of mutual friends heard about the breakup around then. I didn't make some announcement. Brenna did. Unfortunately for her, she apparently left out a few details when talking to Gavin, one of the guys we'd known for years. He called me Thursday. Did you seriously dump Brenna because she went on a date? I laughed. Is that what you heard? There was a pause. Apparently not. I explained the basic timeline. Not intimate details. Just enough. She asked for an open relationship. She immediately started seeing Rhett. I agreed under written rules. Then she wanted to close everything after Rhett lost interest and I started dating too. Gavin was quiet for a second. Oh, yeah, that is. Not exactly how she explained it. I wasn't surprised. I told him I wasn't asking anyone to choose sides. And weirdly, that seemed to help. Within days, the messages from mutual friends mostly stopped. Brenna noticed. She accused me of turning everyone against her. I hadn't. People just weren't reacting the way she'd expected once they knew what actually happened. Meanwhile, Maurice and I kept seeing each other. Eventually I told her about the new job. We were having dinner when I said, there's something I should probably tell you before this gets weird. She put down her fork. That sounds promising. I explained the offer, the move, the timing. Maurice listened. Then she nodded. Congratulations. That easy? What am I supposed to do? Throw your phone into traffic? I laughed. I just figured this probably changes things. It does. She took another bite. We've been seeing each other for a few weeks. Callum, we don't need to plan retirement. That might have been the healthiest sentence anybody had said to me in months. We agreed we'd keep talking and see what happened. No promises. No pressure. About 3 weeks before the lease ended, I started moving things into storage. Books first, then some furniture. My desk, kitchen stuff that belonged to me. The apartment slowly started looking less like our home. One evening, I carried a box toward the door and noticed Brenna standing in the hallway watching me. She wasn't angry this time. Callum, I stopped. If I never talked to Red again, would you stay? I set the box down. No. She looked genuinely confused. I'll block him. This isn't about Red anymore. Her face tightened. What does that even mean? I looked at her, and that's when I realized something. After all the arguments, the bills, the dating, the apartment, everything, Brenna still didn't understand why I was actually leaving. I left the box on the floor. Do you actually want to know? Brenna folded her arms. I've been asking you for weeks. No, you've been asking what you need to change to make me stay. That's different. She didn't answer. I leaned against the wall. This didn't end because of Rhett. Then why do you keep mentioning him? Because Rhett showed me what you thought our relationship was worth. Her expression changed. I could tell she was already preparing to argue. So I kept going. You didn't come to me because we were both unhappy and suggest something we could explore together. You already had somebody lined up. I did not have him lined up. You wanted him. I never denied that. You denied it the first night. She looked away. Fair enough. I continued. You wanted to see whether there was something better out there without giving up what you already had here. That isn't what happened. Then explain something to me. She looked back. If Rhett had fallen completely in love with you, would you have closed the relationship? Silence. That was probably the longest silence we'd had since this started. That's hypothetical. Sure, you can't ask me to answer something that didn't happen. I think you just did. She shook her head. You always do this. Do what? Turn everything into some logical argument where you're automatically right. That one almost made me laugh. This wasn't complicated enough to require much logic. Brenna, you wanted the relationship open when Rhett wanted you. You wanted it closed when he didn't. And because I realized I made the wrong choice, I'm apparently not allowed to fix it? That's not the part you're missing. Then what am I missing? I hesitated. Not because I didn't know. Because saying it out loud felt uglier than I'd expected. You didn't think I'd meet anyone. She stared at me. What? You thought you'd go out, have fun, see Rhett, maybe meet other guys, whatever, and I'd still basically be here. I never said that. You didn't have to. That is completely in your head. Is it? Yes. I nodded. Okay. She threw her hands up. Stop doing that. Doing what? Saying okay when you don't believe me. I picked the box back up. Then she said it. I just didn't think you'd actually meet someone. I stopped. Neither of us spoke. Brenna realized what she'd said about 2 seconds after I did. She immediately tried to fix it. That's not what I meant. I put the box back down. It's exactly what you meant. No, I meant I didn't think you'd start seriously dating somebody. Why? Because we'd been together 5 years. So had you and I when you started seeing Rhett. Her mouth opened, then closed. There wasn't really anywhere for the conversation to go after that. For months I'd been wondering whether I was being unfair. That sentence removed the last little bit of doubt. Brenna hadn't expected an open relationship. She'd expected an open door. She could walk outside, look around, maybe find something more exciting, and I'd stay behind holding her place. When she came back, everything would still be there. Except I wasn't. She sat down on the edge of the couch. So that's it? Yeah. 5 years means nothing to you? I sighed. I hate when you say that. Why? Because 5 years mattered enough that I would have never asked you for what you asked me for. Her eyes watered. I wasn't going to pretend that felt good. It didn't. Despite everything, this was still someone I'd loved for 5 years. Someone whose coffee order I knew without thinking. Someone whose family I'd spent holidays with. Someone I'd once assumed would probably be the mother of my kids. You don't turn that off like a light switch. But missing someone and trusting them aren't the same thing. It mattered, I said. A lot. Then why can't we fix it? Because now I know how you saw me. She wiped her face. And how's that? Safe. She looked confused. That's bad? Not by itself. I sat across from her. But I wasn't safe because you respected what we'd built. I was safe because you thought I wasn't going anywhere. She didn't answer. You thought nobody else would want me. I never said that. You basically just did. That isn't fair. Maybe not. I stood again. But I'm not staying in a relationship where I'm somebody's insurance policy. I carried the box downstairs. When I came back, Brenna had gone into the bedroom. We didn't speak again that night. The final week of the lease arrived faster than I expected. Brenna found a smaller apartment about 15 minutes away. She hated it, mostly because it didn't have the amenities ours had. The car was still a problem. She mentioned refinancing it. I stayed out of that. By Friday, most of my belongings were gone. Maurice had offered to help with the last few boxes, but I told her I could handle it. Saturday afternoon, I was carrying the final things toward the door when Brenna appeared from the bedroom. She looked exhausted. So you're really doing this? Yeah, you're throwing away 5 years because I made one mistake. I shook my head. You didn't make a mistake. You made a choice because you thought I had no other options. My phone buzzed. It was sitting on the counter between us. The screen lit up. Maurice, I'm downstairs. Brenna saw it. Of course she did. Her face changed immediately. So she's helping you move now? She offered. Brenna laughed bitterly. Where exactly are you two going? That caught me slightly off guard. What? You've never told me where you're moving. She was right. I'd told her I wasn't renewing. I'd told her I was leaving. But I'd never told her why the timing worked so perfectly. Brenna stared at me. Callum, where are you going? I picked up my phone. There was no reason to keep it from her anymore. Another state. Her expression went blank. What? I got a new job. And judging by the way she looked at me, Brenna had just realized there was still one part of my life she knew absolutely nothing about. Brenna stared at me. You got a new job? Yeah. Since when? I accepted the offer a few weeks ago. Her eyes narrowed. A few weeks? Thursday after my final interview. She actually looked offended. You interviewed for another job and didn't tell me? I applied months ago. That seemed to confuse her even more. Months? Almost a year ago. Technically, the process took forever. She sat down on one of the remaining boxes. I probably should have explained the whole thing sooner. But after our relationship opened, I'd stopped automatically sharing every detail of my future with her. The position was a senior regional role overseeing commercial valuations across several markets. More responsibility, better benefits, and roughly 30% more money than I was making. The company was also covering part of my relocation. Brenna listened without interrupting. When I finished, she asked, "Why didn't you tell me?" At first, yeah. Because there wasn't anything to tell. I applied. Then months went by. And later? That was harder. I looked at her. Later, I wasn't planning my future around us anymore. She looked down. That landed differently. For years, basically every major decision I'd made had included Brenna automatically. Apartments, vacations, savings, work. If something affected where I'd live or what my schedule looked like, she was part of the calculation. Then one night she'd asked me to reconsider what our relationship even was. So I did. Apparently neither of us had expected me to take that part seriously. After a few seconds she looked toward my phone. Is Mary's moving with you? No. That seemed to surprise her. So what's happening with you two? We're seeing what happens. You're leaving her too? I'm not leaving Mary's. We've known each other for a few weeks. Brenna frowned. But you're dating? Yeah. So you're doing long distance? Maybe. I shrugged. We haven't decided. She gave me this strange look. I think she expected Mary's to be the grand prize at the end of all this. She wasn't. I liked Mary's. A lot, actually. But replacing Brenna with another woman immediately would have missed the entire point. For the first time in years, I could make a decision because it was good for me. That felt pretty nice. Brenna stood up. So that's really it. That's really it. I took my apartment key off the ring. Technically I still had until midnight, but everything I owned was already packed. I placed the key on the counter. Brenna looked at it, then at me. I hope this was worth it. I wasn't sure what she meant. The breakup? The job? Mary's? Maybe all of it. I think it will be. That was the last conversation we had in that apartment. Mary's helped me load the final boxes. 3 days later, I left. A lot of people probably expect me to say everything became amazing immediately. It didn't. Moving is terrible. Starting a new job while living out of boxes is worse. For about 2 weeks, I couldn't find half my kitchen stuff because I'd labeled one box miscellaneous like an idiot. But the job turned out to be exactly what I'd hoped. More demanding, definitely. Also more interesting. I stopped hearing Brenna's voice in my head every time I spent a quiet Friday night at home. Apparently enjoying stability wasn't a moral failure. Mary's visited about 6 weeks later. I visited her after that. We're still seeing each other. Slowly. Neither of us has made promises we can't guarantee we'll keep, and weirdly, that makes whatever we're doing feel healthier. As for Brenna, most of what I know came through Gavin. She moved into the smaller apartment. She eventually sold the car because the payment was eating too much of her income. Rhett disappeared completely. No dramatic confrontation. No secret romance. Nothing. From what Gavin heard, Rhett had never considered their situation serious in the first place. That was probably the saddest part. Brenna had risked something permanent for something the other person apparently considered temporary. A few months after I moved, she texted me. I understand now. I ruined the best thing I had. I'm sorry. I stared at it for a while. There were plenty of responses I could have sent. Some would have been satisfying for 30 seconds. Instead I wrote, I hope things work out for you. Then I deleted the conversation. That's pretty much where things stand now. And looking back, the funniest part is that everyone focused on the dating apps. 200 matches versus 3. Yeah. The difference was ridiculous. But those numbers weren't why I left. I didn't need 200 women to prove Brenna wrong. I needed one conversation to understand what Brenna already believed. She thought she could open our relationship because there was no real risk on her side. She'd explore. I'd wait. If she found someone better, she'd have options. If she didn't, she'd come home and close everything again. The possibility that I might decide I didn't want her anymore apparently never entered the equation. For 5 years, I'd thought being dependable was something I brought to the relationship. Brenna eventually started treating it like proof that I couldn't leave. She wanted me to become exciting enough to make her choose me again. Instead, those 6 weeks taught me something considerably more useful. I didn't want to be chosen anymore. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you really like our videos, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day.